My name is Vincent Guinta. I'm really excited to be here with you today. As many of you know, this is my second opportunity to work here at Nebraska, and it means a lot to me to have the opportunity to be here with Coach Rhule and his staff. And my role here as Senior Director of Player Personnel and Recruiting, I assist Coach Rhule in putting the blueprint for how we want to build the team and how we want to go about recruiting and marketing the program. And then also my main job is just to support our staff, and that's support our coaching staff, our head coach, anybody that works in personnel and recruiting, to give them the tools that they need to succeed.
I'm Ryan Callaghan. This is my 7th year here at Nebraska. I'm the Director of Recruiting Systems and Strategy here. To put it simply, really my role is really the organization of everything in recruiting, trying to bring it all together. Also at the same time continuing to make sure that we're innovating and being on the cutting edge of everything that we do here. I'm also in charge of all our incoming guys' academics, making sure that they're going to qualify with the NCAA. I'm proud of the fact that we have, as a staff here, have built the best recruiting database in the country. We also have some of the best processes in college football. With that being said, though, we understand that ultimately those are just tools. And at the end of the day, each of us still has to recruit. And recruiting still comes down to relationships with both the parents and the recruit. And I'm fortunate enough that every single day that I come into this building, I get to take away many life lessons and values from Coach Rhule, the staff, and the players. And ultimately, I get to bring those back home to my 2 boys. So when I'm able to share that with recruits and their families, I think it speaks volumes about Coach Rhule and the culture that we have here at Nebraska.
My name is Keith Williams, and I have the privilege of this being my 2nd time here at Nebraska. First time being a former player, and I'm excited to be back. It's kind of unique in a way that I got Vince Guinta sitting up here with me because he actually recruited me here in Nebraska in the Bill Callaghan era. So I'm very excited to be back here as a director of player personnel. I've moved up in it, kind of earned my stripes, and Coach Rhule gave me the opportunity to take over. On a day-to-day, I'm kind of really focused in on the talent evaluations, building relationships with, the student athlete, and also helping those connections with communication with the coaching staff. So managing boards, our recruiting boards all the time, and basically a couple extra roles that I kind of took on was the camps and clinics. With the clinics, we had the big clinic, the X's and O's clinic, where we had about 800 coaches here this past spring, which I think was a big turnout, and it was a big connection and building relationships throughout the state of Nebraska. Also, we had the Omaha camp not too long ago, which I thought was really big, getting back in the Omaha community and helping out. We had 32 players there voluntarily, and we also had about 40 staff members there voluntarily also helping. So I think we're doing a great job in pushing the direction of getting into the state, finding talent, also evaluating talent. We always want to win our backyard. And I think we're doing a heck of a job also attacking the 500-mile radius and also those targeted states that we have outside of that radius.
Lots of questions. Steve Sipple, Husker Online. For Vince and Keith, you brought up the Callaghan. The Callaghan era was, it was known in part for really good recruiting. Do you see similarities? I know different time frames, but do you see similarities with the way things are going now under Matt Rhule, with the way it happened under Bill? Are there similarities and differences?
Well, I think if you look at similarities of some of the similarities would be, being both with NFL backgrounds.
Right.
I think Coach Rhule has shown that we always want to push and find value where maybe others don't, and we want to find value based on information that's verified and measurable, right? We're always looking at track times and verified sizes and things of that nature. So I think, I think that's similar in the eras. I think, the thing that's been great about Coach Rhule is that that Coach Rhule never wants to rest. There's never a rest. We never pause, and I think that's a little similar too. That's the fun and the challenge too, right? Because every day is another day to recruit, and every day is a new opportunity to recruit. So I would say those are similar. Differences, just different eras, different calendars, different set of rules that we're playing by. But at the end of the day, I think the chase and the acquisition of great players, that's the motivation. I think that's always going to be similar.
I know you were a player, so it's a little different.
Just kind of, one thing I would say, like kind of what Vince hit on was the NFL background. Then also, I think the verified measurements and times. I think that's big, especially with Coach Rhule and our evaluation process. And kind of, I know we're going to probably get to this, but summer camps, I think that's a big process within our summer camps that I think makes us elite in order to target guys and pull guys in order to get those guys those special attentions in our camps.
Question for Vince. Vince Sherman from The Athletic. Can you give some context to how much the size of the staff that you work with through your career has changed, and the size of just the recruiting and personnel staff, and what that allows you to do now that you couldn't 5, 10, 15 years ago?
Right, it's a great question. Well, if you look at the staffing size, obviously they've gotten over the last 15 or so years, they've gotten tremendously larger. If we looked at a recruiting staff meeting from 2005, there would have been 3 of us in the room, right? There would have been myself and a student worker and an administrative assistant. And it's now gotten to where there would be 20 plus of us in the room. And what that's allowed us to do is to be more specific and in depth across the board. The information that we gather on individual prospects is much more in depth. The communication that we have with them, the steady stream of communication is increased. I think what you see is just the ability of more people allows you to be more in the details and more aggressive in your evaluation process. So, the staff size is definitely probably, 3 to 4 times that, and it's busy. I think as you see it, it kind of mirrors a little bit of the National Football League sizes. We've got, similar sizing, I think, now in our staff to what a lot of NFL teams are like.
This is for Ryan. I'm Sam McEwen from the Home World Herald. Why do you have the best database in college football? What makes it that, and how do you build it?
To be honest with you, the way you build it is through really smart people. So, whether it's Evan Cooper or it's Matt Rhule or it's some of our young recruiting staffers, we take input from everybody. And I'm not going to get too into the specifics of our recruiting database, but it's truly a one-stop shop. Because what you have to imagine is in this recruiting world nowadays, there's so much information. And there's information coming from everywhere, whether it's track or these camp measurables or when coaches go out on the road. And what we built here is truly one-stop shop where you can go on there and find whatever you need to. The right information is prioritized, which ultimately, at the end of the day, the main goal with that is to make identifying, evaluating, and recruiting the right type of players at the University of Nebraska easy for our staff and coaches.
What does Matt Rhule like to prioritize in that? And as a secondary question, how do you sort of categorize and sort for intangibles?
We have a in-depth process that we work through on every single recruit as we offer them. So we really like to dive into the details, dig into their character, dig into their background, dig into their academics. That's something that Coach Rhule has built up since he's been here. Coach Rhule, out of any coach that I've worked for, has emphasized measurables more than anybody. And he understands measurables more than anybody. And to the point that he'll text me nonstop throughout the day asking for measurables on guys, where I had to get it built. I had to get something built on my phone so I don't have to run to my computer every time to go and track down, certain times on guys. But it's something that I'm proud of, and it's not something that I've done myself. It's something that input from our entire staff has helped put together, and ultimately at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're selecting the right guys in the recruiting process, we're recruiting the right guys, so that we can be successful on the field.
Ryan, how inaccurate do you see times and measurements out there? Like before you actually get your ones, I mean, is it pretty common that you see a lot of?
You understand which ones are more accurate than others. There's certain ones that you can compare to your camp times. Obviously, anything that you do yourself is going to be at the top of the pecking order. So you have to take all that into account. But there's certain camps like Under Armour, Rivals, Adidas, Elite 11. You have to bring that all into one place. So the important thing is we need to make sure that when we're looking at a guy that the information is verified. And we don't want to assume just because a guy is listed at 6'6", 300, that he's necessarily 6'6", 300. Because when you get him in person, he could really be, 6'2". So that's why verified information and ultimately getting those guys on campus is so important.
Hey Keith, how does your work in managing recruiting boards mesh with the assistant coaches who are on the road like this time of year and going out and making evaluations, talking to high school coaches? How does all that play into ultimately deciding on who gets offers and when they get offers? Like, what's the process there that you guys use to coordinate all of that?
So right now, it's kind of unique because guys are still on the road. So I'm gathering all the information. One, I want to say first, I have a great staff. We have some young guys in there, student assistants, and also assistant pod leaders who basically are kind of their own DPPs of their areas. And they do a great job at kind of helping me identify and also with the notes gathering as these coaches are on the road. Each one is assigned 2 coaches. So it helps me a lot in the process of kind of identifying guys and also with the process of going through all these notes that these coaches are seeing. Right now, I probably evaluate over 500 guys so far on the road. That's from, top tier guys all the way down to walk-ons. So I'm able to kind of identify those guys, pinpoint those guys. We have different color code processes we also have, so I can really pinpoint this guy and then put him on the board and make adjustments and talk to coaches while they're on the road. So when we kind of wrap up off the road, I can make adjustments on the board, talk to coaches and communicate and be able to kind of figure out who can we identify as these are our top guys. So we're kind of still in that process right now, but it's kind of a flow right now of kind of where we are right now.
So then when it comes to offering somebody, is it
Now,
Coach Rhule then, or how does that?
So now with the process, we have the pipeline. So getting those evaluations in, kind of what Ryan talked about, making sure everything's validated and verified, and then also kind of doing a background check on these guys. That's a big part of getting those live evals, making sure he is this height, making sure that he does have great character, making sure his grades are right in order for us to go through that process and kind of push through to the offer stage so I can get to Coach Rhule and be like, hey, this is a guy that I stand on the table for, that we believe in, and we can offer.
Keith, going off that, Matt Solson from The Athletic, just want to ask, as the coaching rules kind of continue to evolve, do you think that folks on the personnel side should be allowed to go on the road here in the future?
I tell you what, I have 2 unique situations where I actually got an opportunity to be on the road recruiting, and I loved it. So I'm all for any change that comes in the future.
And Brian Christopherson with Husker 24/7. It used to be such a big deal to get the official visits in season. How have you seen things change, and what are the opportunities of getting them here, like in June or even before that?
Right. I think you've seen that over the last few years as the calendar has changed. I think the summertime official visit has really taken over as the bulk of the official visits. I think in June and May, the amount of time that you get to spend with the families, the individual recruits and their families, I think that is so valuable. That we've realized that is really where the sweet spot is, and being able to really get families comfortable in Lincoln, on campus, seeing the real surrounding areas, just so much more in depth that you can be in June versus if you come late Friday night after your high school game, you watch the game Saturday, you fly home first thing Sunday morning. We have an unbelievable game day experience here, and if it's seen, it blows everyone's mind, and so it's fantastic to get them here for that. But as far as the official visit, I think you see the vast majority will be in June. I think they'll continue to trend that way as well.
Hey Vince, how different was this spring for you guys with the new contact rules where it appeared that you guys used a lot more private aircraft and you had bigger staff visits with all your key targets, where obviously that wasn't something maybe you were doing in the past, trying to kind of create a visit experience in the spring?
Right. I think, again, it goes back to new calendar, limited amount of times to interact and to evaluate prospects in the spring. The calendar went from 168 to 140 opportunities. That doesn't seem like a lot, but when you go from 16.8 days per 10 coaches on the road, now it's 14 days, that starts to add up. We were on you're in a shorter window too, where you only really have for the core is 4 weeks. So we have great resources here. Our administration has been unbelievable, providing us the things that we've asked for as we've done the research and put plans together. Keith and the personnel staff putting together guides that we need to see, and then we want to make sure that we can go out and use our resources the best we can, and one of those resources is time. And so if we could get on an airplane and we have 4 coaches on there, and it saves each one of those coaches 4 hours in that day, we just save 16 hours. And then you times that by 14 days, that tremendously accelerates your recruiting and makes up for what you lost and then some. And you saw a few of our coaches. We would have 2 to 5, 6 coaches on an airplane. We would land in areas, go see high schools, go see targeted kids, and then come back to the plane and go on to the next place. And I think it's kind of more similar in a lot of ways to like what people were used to in December and January. It's kind of a mix. The old spring combined with the old winter is kind of the new spring.
What is the thinking behind the mass of coaches going to visit a prospect, putting them all together on a plane, or having them all together?
I think the one thing that you find now is that we have contact period. So we're able to sit down face to face with the head coach, whoever coaches from that school want to be there, the parents, relatives of the young men. So it's very valuable to have, say that I'm the area recruiter and I recruit and I'm a position coach, but now I have the coordinator with me. So if I'm sitting face to face with the young man's family, now I've got the play caller next to me. And they want to say, well, how are you going to use my son in this offense? Well, I'm sitting next to the guy that's calling the plays. And if I'm a running back, then I'm sitting next to the offensive line coach who's going to tell me how we're going to block, right? So you don't just have to take my word for it. Ask these guys, right? And I think that's the concept.
Obviously, you guys don't get to choose how they do the recruiting periods, but it is possible that there's going to be now a summer signing period that could happen. How might a school that has a really good system, and I think you guys all think you do, be able to leverage a summer signing period to its advantage?
What do you think about that?
Well, I think one of the big things that's tied into is our camp system. We like getting guys, our top guys, to our camps in the summer. I think all things being considered equal, we'd love to have most of our class, signed and finished in the summertime. So as you see and you look at the recruiting calendar, everything is really being expedited. With us being able to go out on the road and have contact with the juniors, everything's gotten jump-started, so it makes sense that the signing day could potentially move up. And if that's something that's going to happen, then we're obviously going to be prepared for it and ready to adapt and adjust and make sure that we can sign the best signing class possible.
Do you perceive that if there is a summer signing period, that then December will still exist, and if they'll be free, or they'll just?
I would say so, because typically you always have your initial signing period, but there's guys that pop up late. There's a transfer portal they're talking about incorporating transfer portal signing for those guys. So I think that could always be a part of it. I think that does make sense.
Keith, you mentioned the youth camp in Omaha a few weeks ago. As someone who's been around this program at various points with various coaching staffs, what do you see, and Vince, or any of you guys can answer also, but what do you specifically see that Coach Rhule and his staff are doing in the state of Nebraska to appeal to prospects and expand opportunities for Nebraska high school kids that hasn't necessarily always happened here?
I think one thing we do when we hit the road, we hit everywhere. I know you see Ed Foley, he has the state of Nebraska. He's out on the road everywhere from all the way west to the border, coming all the way through Omaha, all the way to Iowa, border. So I think we do a great job of hitting all these schools. And another thing we do is do a great job at communicating with these high school coaches. I think that's the reason why we had a big turnout at our clinic. We're talking to these guys, we're communicating with these guys. Also, our summer camps are huge. We're getting these invites out to all people. And the best thing about Coach Rhule is in his evaluation process, he really, really hones in to give an opportunity to everyone. And he gives us the opportunity in these camps to invite and basically find those diamond in the roughs. I think that's what he really kind of built on in Baylor and other places he's been, and finding those guys and developing those guys, because we're a developmental program. So,
Keith, just personally, what did a couple of years ago, and you mentioned earning your stripes. What were the keys to doing that, in a quick fashion?
I tell you what, man, it's great being back. It really is. It meant a lot. I got an opportunity. Vince actually brought me back here, gave me that opportunity to kind of start in an assistant role and work my way up. I love Nebraska. I really do. I remember being in high school, having all these offers, and having Vince and a couple other staffs coming in my home, and basically, three things that stuck out was academics, and Dennis LeBlanc's the best in the country. Tradition, I'm a big tradition guy when it comes to sellouts, when it comes to the academic excellence, when it comes to the black shirts, the pipeline. I'm really big in that. And then also the brand of football that Nebraska stands for, that end. I take deep pride in my job, and every day I walk into this place, I know the responsibility that sits on my shoulders, being a former player, and also what it means to be a Nebraskan. So I take deep pride in that every day I come into this place. I push these guys to be excellent. I stay here late because I want to be great. I want to be part of something special that Coach Rhule is building, and I want to be around here to build this place back to where it needs to be.
Simple question then, what kind of hours do you guys work? You don't even be honest.
Go ahead, Vince.
We work a lot of hours. Yeah, and it depends. Like Keith works a ton of hours. Keith works a few more than Ryan or me. We go home a little earlier to see our kids, awake every now and then. Yeah, it's different times of the year. You're going to be at the office more. Like June, I probably won't be at home very much, but July I'm going to be home pretty much every day. So it's a give and a take, and to build on what Keith said, it's fun to come to work at a place where you know that you represent something. And I know that every day that I come, I'm representing the young men that are in the program, our coaching staff, our support staff, but I want to represent the people of the state of Nebraska, the work ethic of this state, and the people that have come before. So that's something that we take very seriously every day.
Vince, Amy Jocelyn, I'll start. When you hear Keith talk about how his journey has come full circle, what goes through your head? What does that mean to you that you helped in this?
It's a lot of pride, to see our young men be successful. Keith is a great example of that, and there are so many that have similar stories to Keith in the private business world that don't get the same press conferences that we do, but they're also very successful. So at the end of the day, that's really the most important thing of our job, is preparing the young men for success in their lives. That's to get to the National Football League if that opportunity is there, and then for a long-term life success. And to see that at this level is a great pride. And so if I could raise my own sons to have that kind of success someday, I would consider myself a successful father. So.
Hey Vince, you guys had the fewest scholarship transfers this offseason among Power 5 schools. You were at 8, the average is 20. I'm curious from your perspective, working here, what do you think Matt Rhule and his coaches are doing right from the retention standpoint?
Honesty, and family. That's it. It's real simple. Be honest with people and upfront. He has tremendous job of setting expectations, so you know what to expect as a player. You know what's expected of you, and when we're all honest and we operate in a great family environment, people are going to want to stick around. They're going to know that we have their best interests at heart. Maybe they didn't get to play a lot this year. There's going to be more playing time in the future, right? I think at the end of the day, though, honesty and family.
Hey Vince, when you look at recruiting at Nebraska big picture, how unique is the challenge here, knowing the population base of this state, and the expectations though still that are with
Right.
the program here, knowing that you have like one of the smallest populations in the Power 4?
Right. I mean, we're the geographic center of the United States, so we're in the middle of everything, but we're not super close to anything. But we are in the fact that if you look at the 500-mile radius and you look at where we're drivable to, and you look at cities like St. Louis and Kansas City, we're drivable, a little bit longer drive, but we could drive to Chicago, we could drive to Minneapolis, right? We could drive to the Dakotas, we could drive to the other direction and go west too. Or go to Iowa. So we're drivable to a lot of really good players that match what our program's about, right? There's a lot of great developmental players in this area. There's a lot of guys with big frames or a lot of speed that we're seeing that keep developing that they're here. And I think as more population has come into Nebraska, I mean, the population is significantly more than it was 20 years ago. I see so many more players that are developing in the Omaha area, elite players that are developing every year. So that just continues to grow. And I think that, that matches kind of what we're looking for. And then we target the areas that we know that we can, that makes sense for us, where we can go outside of that footprint, And I think you've seen kind of a honing in on that as well, as you see areas that we're going to, which is Florida more and Texas more and a little bit more into California.
This is for anybody, but maybe specifically for Keith. Nebraska recruited St. Louis and Kansas City really well. Started kind of when Bill got here and Kevin Cosgrove, and that continued to some degree through Bo's time. But it's kind of tapered off a little bit. And I know you guys are trying to make a hard effort to get back in there. What kind of relationship do you feel like you have to build in those two cities in particular to have the kind of success you want to have recruiting?
I know St. Louis. I got some deep ties in the Missouri and St. Louis area that's been from there, and we are recruiting really heavily in those areas, and also in the Kansas City areas. Like I said, we're going to attack the 500-mile radius, and those drives are really close and comfort for people to get here to Nebraska. And the big selling with Nebraska is just basically when you get guys here on campus, you see this beautiful campus, you see the family environment, you see the new facilities we have. I think we're elite all the way around. It's just a matter of just building those relationships and getting these guys here on campus to see it so we can sell it.
Are the coaches in St. Louis in a particularly important relationship building?
Absolutely. I know in the Kansas and Missouri area, we also have, I know Coach EJ and also Coach Rob Dvorak in those areas.
Hey Vince, how has NIL and the possibility of revenue sharing in the future changed your job?
Well, I think we had Coach Padden was in here last week for this part. Obviously, NIL is a major part of what we do now. But the day-to-day operations of my job really haven't changed, right? We still have a marketing apparatus that we need to follow through on. We have an evaluation apparatus that we need to follow through on. And so that's day-to-day. That doesn't change. At the end is those discussions that they have with the NIL and how that goes. That doesn't affect me on a day-to-day.
Anything else for this group? Good. Vince,